Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to another episode of Glasscast Podcasts, a platform for discovery where we dive deep into real conversations on trending issues and topics that affect and concern each and every one of us. We look at topics ranging from politics to economy, health, culture, entertainment, personal growth. I'll tell you, if you've not been following us, you've not been doing yourself good. I'll encourage you to go back to our previous episodes where we've talked about immigration, security in Nigeria, paternity fraud, surrogacy, prostate that is affects men's reproductive health. And go to any of the social media handles. Instagram, we're on Instagram, we're on TikTok, we're on Facebook, we're on YouTube, and the handle is Glasscast Podcast. So just follow, like, comment, and share, and spread the good news. If you get the news, don't hold it. And tonight, in this studio, we'll be talking about a very, very important topic as well. And I can assure you, I have competent and well-versed people in the studio to help us deal with the topic. It's going to be interesting, it's going to be educating, and it's going to be entertaining as well. I don't want to waste our time too much. Straight away, I want to introduce those in the panel who are very, very experienced in this area. To my far left, I have Mrs. Anne Wankwo. In the course of this episode, you will hear us refer to her as Sister Anne. Not that she's a reference sister, but because of what she's done. She's a social worker with so many years of experience here in the United Kingdom. She's worked as a social worker in mental health. She's a mental health expert in education, child support and child protection, and family support. So she's very, very experienced on the topic that we'll be talking about, which is child protection. She's also a community organizer. She's done a lot of work in Scotland here, particularly in Glasgow. When I call her Sister Anne, there is no child in this Scotland, especially Glasgow, that is under 20 years that doesn't know her because of what she's done, training our kids, raising them up, teaching them Igbo language and making sure that we don't lose them to this society. So our kids call her Sister Anne, and they has entered into the lips of our parents to call her Sister Anne. So that's why we call her Sister Anne as well.
Exactly.
And to my immediate left is a familiar face, a very experienced legal practitioner. I call him today. I will introduce him as Barrister Mazi. Make no mistake about the Mazi. He's very, very particular about that.
Very, very.
Barrister Mazi Ken Joko. The other time I introduced him as a triple qualified solicitor, but I've gone back to check. He's quadruple actually. He's qualified in England, he's qualified in Wales, he qualified in Scotland, and he's been a lawyer, barrister and solicitor of the Supreme Court of Nigeria for over 21 years. So tonight, sit back, enjoy, and when you learn, because we're going to be teaching life skills tonight, when you get the information, don't hold it, don't keep it to yourself. Share, comment, subscribe, follow, and let others enjoy what we're going to put out today. Straight away, I would start straight away with our a very important and experienced guest, Sister Anne.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yeah,
thank you very much for having me.
It's always a pleasure.
In fact, if I can chip in something here, Sister Anne, I would say that the class that she organizes for our kids helped to lay a foundation for this Glasscast.
Right.
Because for us, instead of chatting as usual and wasting our discussions, as my learned colleague may call it, let's not waste the discussion. So we had to make sure that we pass across these ideas and these discussions to the public. So thank you very much, Sister.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Thank you, Sister Anne. In fact, I am committed to acknowledge you on that. When we get our kids to this Igbo class, group of friends, we sit outside, argue, talk, and also, instead of wasting this discussion, let's put it out there and people will learn from it. And that's how this podcast is better. And Sister Anne, we thank you so much for that inspiration as well.
Thank you. I'm glad that it's benefiting everybody. That's why we have community. So it's our community. So we are building our community.
Yeah, you're a well-experienced community organizer. Thank you so much. And let me straight away, when we talk about child protection, protection. What do we actually mean for the purposes of people who are out there, especially the migrants, the Black African community in the UK here? What do we understand, or what do we take it to be when we talk about child protection? Let's just start from that with you straight away.
Thank you very much for the question. I'm really very grateful and pleased to be here to kind of provide more awareness. I've been speaking to different communities, especially our community, about child protection, what we are required to do in this country because we migrated from different places and, we are here in the UK. So I think when it comes to child protection, where we are coming from, there are certain things that we do, parents do, that is acceptable. But in UK, those things might not be acceptable. So it's just really for us to understand, have awareness of the thin line that what we are supposed to do as a parents. For instance, I will give an example in Igbo land. So family have, we do in community, but the responsibility of a child is solely parents are responsible for their children. But unfortunately in UK, yes, you're responsible for your child, but the law have is that there's a parental responsibility, you have rules, you have boundaries, but government in overall have responsibility for all of us to safeguard and protect us. Now, when it comes to the child protection, so what does that mean in principle, as you have asked me? So what it means is that it's just a framework of safeguarding the children. A practice is legal. So let's understand that aspect. So it's illegal and the practice for safeguarding children from harm. Exploitation, abuse, neglect. So the whole lot of things, but it's the legal principle and is underpinned by, in Scotland, is underpinned by a legal framework called Children Scotland Act 1995. So that's Children Scotland Act 1995 gives us the responsibility. It says that the interest of the child is paramount. It defines your role. It defines the right of the child. It defines what we do, for clarity. Then there is other legislation that still underpins a child protecting a child. So one of them is the United Nations Convention of the Right of the Child, that says that child has a right, not that it's only the adult that have rights. Children have their own right, so that whatever we are doing, that we should remember interest of the child is paramount, especially when you are talking about a child. So it's not your own feeling, it's the child's feeling. So you need to put that into consideration. So that legislation, then Scotland as a whole have a national guidelines on how they deal with the children. So there's a one that we call a getting it right for every child.
Right.
So they call it the GAFE framework. Then from there they go down to Shanari. So that's it. Anyway, but for your own, for the just for the purpose of clarity, it's just the legal framework for protecting a child.
Like that, if I could, by way of summary, is the laws in place, the policies, the practice to safeguard the child, to avoid abuse, neglect, exploitation, and violence, to make sure that the child's interests are protected and covered. And in all circumstances, wherever a child is involved, their interest is far above every other interest, even the interest of the parents.
Fantastic.
And I am aware in England, we have the Child Act of, I think, 1989, the one of 2004. And they have also incorporated the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child into their domestic law as well. And but further down the line, we'll talk about that the Online Safety Act that was passed in 2003. It's going to form part of the major discussion that we're going to be talking about now. But I'll keep that until we get there. Just to buttress what you've said on the legal framework and the practices. And I know, Mazi Barrister, I know you don't agree that anything is still working in Nigeria.
Not at all.
Do you have anything to say about the legal framework with Nigeria?
Yeah, definitely. I'll have something to say. if you look at just as Sister Anne said, the Children Scotland Act that has been passed, that incorporated. In fact, I believe that's the United Nations Convention on the Rights of the Child.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Scotland was the first, or is the first, devolved administration in the UK to incorporate that particular United Nations Convention into its domestic law, making it possible that although within the devolved powers that it has, yes, making it possible that the provisions of that UN Convention on the Rights of the Child will be applicable locally in Scotland. And we know that there are lots of rights that are provided for the child in that convention. And to the adults, we are told that, according to that law, that in all actions concerning children, whether those actions are undertaken by private or public social welfare institutions, whether they are courts of law, administrative authorities, or legislative bodies, that the best interest of the child shall be a primary consideration. When I was looking at the Children's Act in Nigeria, 2003 Act, I saw that a similar provision was provided there. Which means that even they use the definite article the best interest of the child shall be the primary consideration. But all of us know here that there is the best interest of the child is never the primary consideration.
We are going to come into that. Just hold fire on that. Let's take it step by step. You mentioned devolved administration. For the sake of our viewers, in the United Kingdom, when we talk about devolved administrations, we have the kind of what we call the exclusive legislative list in Nigeria, the concurrent list, and the residual list.
Yes.
For the devolved administrations, we have the Scotland, Northern Ireland, and Wales. So, to a certain extent, they have the power to make laws on certain things relating to them.
Yes.
When compared to Nigeria, where you have the federal government, the National Assembly, and the states and local government, which is unfortunately not functional.
Yes.
Part of the things that
exactly.
you always talk about. So that's just to clear that. Now, let me ask Sister Anne, as we fondly call her, Sister Anne.
Okay. Go ahead.
What's, in terms of protecting a child, what are the things you look out for? What are the red flags to identify, to know that a child is in danger or is at risk?
Yeah, so thank you for that question. I think as a parent, you have that responsibility to make sure that your child is safe. Okay. So you are responsible for the emotional well-being of your child. Your physical, making sure that the child is well, that the child attends activities, that the child providing basic things that child need, the food, the shelter, and every other thing. So that's your responsibility. So as long as you're meeting up to that obligation and responsibilities, that child is safe.
Okay.
Yeah. So when we talk about abuse, harm, you can define it as much as possible, it's very broad. But there are ones that we Africans, we don't take serious. When we talk about the emotional aspect of it, shouting, so shouting, yeah, there is something, when a child does something, you have the right to raise your voice, to say something, to make a point, and to make that child to understand that the child is crossing a line. But there is something, shouting is different. Are you doing it to instigate fear into that child? Or maybe you have stress. This country, we know how stressful it is. Maybe something happened in my work. I don't know how to, deal with it. Then I'm coming back. I'm transferring it, to an innocent child that doesn't know what happened to you.
Yeah,
So the emotional.
Let me come in there. The emotional. Now you mentioned this emotional thing. Yeah, it's good. I'm sure we all spent part of our adult life in Nigeria before we came here, and we know how we are raised up. A lot of times, I do think that the system here take it a bit far in terms of when you talk to your child. I'll give you a practical experience. When I came back to the UK in December 2016, came back here finally to be with my family, I noticed one trend.
Okay.
for 6 months. Each time I talk, my children will say I'm screaming, I'm shouting at them. And I now, realize that, in Nigeria, I can tell you, more than 80% of Nigerians are partially deaf, but they don't know because of the noise pollution.
Yeah.
Now,
That's
there is
fine.
no intention to shout at them. It's because of where I'm coming from. You need to really speak very loudly. And when you are speaking loudly, you won't even know that you're speaking loudly, and the children will pick it up. And that has put some African parents, into trouble in this country. So, what do you think that is like an overkill in that particular area of emotional risk or emotional damage to that child, particularly this area of shouting? Because we know Africans, we are loud.
Yes,
Make no
okay.
mistake about that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are loud. So what would you experience here as
Yeah.
a social worker and the cases you've dealt with? What is your thought about that?
I suppose my take there is when you go to Rome, you behave like Roman.
Romans. Okay.
Okay. So when you are coming into the UK,
Uh-huh.
you research how they behave and you align yourself. Just like you're going to work.
Mm.
Do you talk to your colleague loudly? So even if maybe you come newly in a job and with a period of time you learn how they behave and you
Mhm.
start behaving like that.
Mhm.
You mind the way you talk. Maybe we can go to an Igbo meeting. We have the opportunity to express ourselves the way we express. But when you are in your work meeting, you do what they are doing. So that's the different one. So I believe the children, they know the way we talk. They know us.
Mhm.
But when it comes to shouting, there is a shout that that will make that child to be withdrawn. You
Okay.
understand? So you need to start watching that sign. When you're speaking to the child, when you're raising your voice, yes, if your child does something wrong, you can raise your voice to make a point, but let it not be continuous so that when the child knows that you're coming, that child will withdraw. You don't want that. So they will behave like that in the school. They can say something like that you're shouting. I think it's a kind of try to know how to communicate in the country where you are.
Yeah.
Tone down your voice.
Can
Thank
I
you so much.
ask something?
Maz, you have
yes,
something
I wanted to ask something. You know that due to the uniqueness of the families that we come from,
Yeah.
meaning that we are generally migrants
Yeah.
to this place, I'm sure that my learned colleague did not intend then to shout, even
Yeah.
though that the kid said he
I
was
didn't even
shouting.
know. I
Yeah.
didn't
You
even know I was
understand?
shouting.
So when we take our kids home, for instance, and they are in associations where people, of course, use the same vocal tone to talk to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those things, do they have impact on them, on the kids?
No, it doesn't. I would say it doesn't have impact. See where we are doing along with the Igbo class.
Yes.
So people come, the children know the way we talk.
Exactly.
If you have your friends coming around, they know the way you greet. Sometimes my children mimic us the way we do, the way we greet, the way we start, and all that, that kind of thing. So they understand those ones. But the one we are talking about is when a child does something, that child knows that he or she has done something wrong. There is a way you go about it. You understand? There is a way you go
even
about
at that,
it.
I still have issue with that in terms of I recently I've been watching some few things on online about gentle parenting. Sometimes you talk to the kids in a very gentle way, they don't listen until you raise your voice. They know that in fact you are angry.
Yeah.
And I saw somebody was doing a research that when you talk to dogs don't hear us, but they hear the tone.
Yeah,
and they realize
yeah.
that when they saw a dog, that we are just talking to dog, you stupid dog, in a gentle way, and the dog was, around the owner and was comfortable. You stupid and you idiot, and just calling her the dog names. But immediately say, "Hey, you beautiful dog," and the dog ran away.
Yes.
So that tone and that voice has a way of correcting
Yes.
and also instilling discipline on the child, not without the intent of abusing.
Yeah.
A lot of things we do here is for the sake of the interest of the children.
Yes.
But because we are migrants, that is misinterpreted or misunderstood by the society that we find ourselves.
Yes.